My name's Simon Olding. I'm Director of the Crofts Study Centre. I'm here with Frances Hatch in her studio in Weymouth. We were going to have this conversation between each other in the gallery with the exhibition The Common Ground on to the public, but in these current circumstances we're talking together about the show in the studio. Frances.
Lovely. Thank you for coming, Simon, all the way to Weymouth. When we were meeting initially, we just came across the phrase "the common ground," and we both sensed that that was a container, a holding title for this exhibition. Thinking back, a couple of years back, I think, or 1 year back at least, did you have any idea about how the show might look?
I did, because it seemed to me that there was a strong connecting point between the way in which you practice your painting and the idea of the surface of the work and the gathering of materials to produce the work. And there was a connecting point, it seemed to me, with the practice of some contemporary and other pioneer potters. But it also seemed to me that that notion of the common ground, which was yours, was a very, very strong and elusive title that we ended up giving, I think, quite properly to the show, because it seemed to me that it brought together that the idea of commonality, the idea of common ground as a kind of generic phrase, with the very particularities of the thesis of the show, which are also concerned essentially with ground. And just with that lovely little allusion to the charity Common Ground. Yes. So that idea of, kind of that rich idea of the presence and the purpose of environment, which actually has become, so topical today, though we were not thinking of it at that moment. That seemed to me to be doing some very expressive work. So the common ground seems to me holds this show together in a very powerful way.
Yes, and for me, the importance of relatedness, relatedness to that ground, and all the people that I've invited to actually work with me on this, to bring into the space, I can see the ground beneath it. I can actually see the relatedness to ground, to our common ground, and I can see it through to the activity of the potter wasp that I imagined at the end of my essay, that creature that makes extraordinary forms, is not doing anything very different, except we're more aware of what we're doing.
Yeah. I was interested in the way in which you put contemporary makers together, but actually it's one of the holding places for the show, it seems to me, is the work of Catherine Pladel-Bouverie, whose work is really, really important, one of the kind of foundational potters in the Crofts Study Centre collection. And that idea, which I think you've thought about deeply, of the way in which a potter can use the materials around them to create experimental work, actually work that at the end of the day the form might be controlled, but the way in which the glaze operate on the pot can't be completely controlled. That's really essential to Catherine's way of working. So can you say something about the way in which you've wanted the work of Catherine Pladel-Bouverie to be expressed in the exhibition? Because you've drawn together not just the pots, but her writings, so to and they've formed an important part of the show too.
Yes. She struck me as a really diligent listener. and somebody who attended to her material and who found out what it is that it could do best. She didn't make it do things that it didn't want to do. And you see that actually in Akiko's work as well. But she diligently recorded. She looked at every harvest of her grasses as individual harvests. She also had a generosity about her, not only towards her ground and her material and her making, but also she was recording for posterity too, which is, in my curating, I was aware that what you do as a department is also to make things available to others. So there's a generosity in why you're there, and also, you know, she was very important because there's something very, very generous about the way she works.
I mean, one of the interesting things for us, I suppose, is the record of her achievement that is I don't think literary is the right word, but the expression of her kind of scientific analysis in her notebooks is really, really important. They're records for her, they're traces of time, they're indicators of what's going to happen when you put this pot in the kiln. There's the hopefulness, the you know, the ash, the laurel, the materials that she's gathering around us are going to do a job of work, which she can anticipate but not completely control, because the flame and the temperature is going to do that for her. And yet that sense of order and control and also risk, that seems to me to link to the way in which you're working in the field as well. So is that right? I mean, have I got that right? That you haven't got a complete plan for a work, but there is a sense of, you know, innovation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the important thing is for me is that, yes, in the same, you know, I was connected to Catherine as well by her, the way that she works with her limited palette. Jack does the same. You know, there's a lot of, and Kyra chooses to do the same. We purposefully, and I limit what I cart with me into the landscape. I use a limited palette of pigments. I become familiar with that. Students historically have come to me thinking, gosh, you know, if they come on one of my courses, you know, they'll be able to, like, let it all hang out. Well, actually what they discover is when they come on my courses, I don't work like that. You know, I'm very particular and very restrained. And the more restrained I am, the more the landscape provides for me. And that's what Catherine's doing. You know, she's entering into a relationship with that material, but that material ultimately will give her something very, very particular that she can't actually be sure about.
What that makes me think is the choice that you've made of introducing some very particular pieces by Adam Buick in the show.
Yes.
And the kind of the first piece you see in the exhibition is, I mean, is deeply unprepossessing at one level. It's kind of what looks like just a kind of lump.
It is a lump.
A lump of clay, but actually it's a really pivotal piece, it seems to me, in the show. So could you say something about how you wanted to juxtapose that, you know, very elemental work of Adam's, which you don't often see in the exhibition gallery, with the more finished and beautiful and that contain
Yes.
the spherical moon jar?
Yes.
Because there's a great distance. So to
Oh,
speak.
there is a great distance.
Well, maybe
isn't
there's
there?
a distance and there's a, the distance is not so far. I don't know.
Yes. Well, the thing is with that piece, which is a fired lump
Mm.
of clay that's set out on a mile journey. He rolled it
Mm.
for a mile around his home ground, and as it rolled, it collected stuff. And this is the ground that we all walk on, isn't it, as humans? I mean, we collect stuff on our boots, things stick to us. Well, stuff stuck to that. And that, I felt, was something which I had already met on the beach in Charmouth. In fact, I've got an example of it here. This is the precursor of Adam's work, really. This is a lower Jurassic lias, which has been rolled backwards and forwards by the tide on Charmouth Beach. And it's actually more elegant than Adam's piece. I mean, it's just, and this is where the two come together, that lump and the elegance that has become through the movement of the tide, the in and the out of the tide. And actually also in the exhibition, in the glass cabinet, which is rather wonderful, there is a cowpat from the same landscape. And the cow grazed on that lower, well, he didn't actually, the cow was probably getting at the grasses, but in so doing, the lower Jurassic blue lias got into its gut, and this perfect cowpat, which is like a French plat, and baked by the sun, has great beauty in its form. And there it is, an animal prefiguring something that Adam as a human being is doing on behalf of us all, which is showing us that we collect stuff and we process it.
So commonness manipulated, as it were, is one of the themes perhaps of the exhibition.
Yes.
And therefore that first piece by Adam is absolutely pivotal.
Absolutely,
it's the kind of foundation piece, as it were.
Pivotal.
Yeah.
And another piece which is present in the show, only in a photograph, is his Earth to Earth, in which he exposes an unfired, beautiful pot on the top of a cairn, and he records it returning to the earth.